welcome to the Promoted Podcast. I'm your host, Felicity Fury, CEO and co-founder of We Aspire, and I'm joined by the incredible Renee Wooten, speaker, aerospace engineer, and you have returned from JPL, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So now I can say officially completed your internship at NASA. Renee, welcome home. How are you?
Thank you. It's so good to be home. I am just very quickly on Djerriwarrh country up in the tablelands of Toowoomba. It's beautiful to be home, to be honest. I do love the weather here, the clean air, the fitness, the health, just Australia. It's beautiful to be home.
Hey,
what about you,
back.
Felicity?
Good. It's been a big week, so I'm ready for it to be the weekend. And yeah, I'm on beautiful Gubbi Gubbi country in the Sunshine Coast. And today we're going to get into a topic which I feel like is going to be up there in my top 3 questions I get asked when I'm doing any speaking. And it is, how do I find a mentor? Renee, I know that like myself, you've got a series of mentors. You've got an advisory board of mentors. I find that really, really helpful for me. How do you go about finding these range of mentors? And all of yours are pretty incredible in very senior roles.
Yeah, it's a great question. And to be honest, whilst I started out my career with incredible mentors, it was actually something that happened incredibly organically. And I suppose I didn't really realize that they were formal mentors or even informal mentors until I looked back many years later and realized it was exceptional to have people to go to who I trusted on so many different topics, everything from my professional life to my personal life. And so for me, it was the fact that I initially had just such incredible mentors and managers, or mentors in managers, I should say. The people that I trusted the most were inevitably the people that I went to and reported to. So that was pretty phenomenal. And I think that that was very much pot luck to start my career with such exceptional people. But, you know, fast forward what has been maybe a 14, 15-year journey since my first job in meeting those people, and they're still very much a big part of my life today, one of which is coming to my wedding next year, which is just unbelievable, I think, that I was able to build such a strong foundational relationship that has now lasted quite a big part of my life, at least over half of it now. But how do I go about seeking mentors generally? Well, for me, time and place and purpose and goals are really important. So I've always considered, if I want to move my career in a different direction, if I want to get better at a certain set of skills, if I want to build a new hobby or meet people that, you know, might have a different life experience to me, I start spreading my little networking fingers, whether it be through social media, through LinkedIn, through attending conferences, or, you know, trying to build networks in the workplace. I start really aligning with what are my goals and who's going to help me build that set of skills or that knowledge or those expertise. So I have certainly had many a moment in my life where I've intentionally gone out to find mentors. They've organically found me, or I have, you know, put myself in different networking scenarios in order to spread my wings, build my awareness of what's happening around me, or, you know, dip my toe into different pools. That's my initial thoughts, Felicity. What about yourself?
I had a similar experience in the beginning. I didn't think about mentors. It didn't occur to me as a thing. It was that I was in my career, and it's sort of probably one of my first mentor was at university. They had an official mentoring program, and I got teamed up with this lady. She was amazing. She had young kids and was an engineer. And so it was more just kind of like, what's it like to be an engineer, and just sharing stories and hearing her perspective. And I never really thought about getting a formal mentor until probably when I started Power of Engineering, and I was sharing about the idea about getting more women into engineering. And this grad at a gas company said, I think our managing director would be really interested in what you have to say. And I was like, oh, little old me, why would this big executive care about what I'm up to? And he said, I'll send her an email. I was like, look, dude, if you can like put in the effort to send an email, you go for it. And he sent her this massive email saying, you need to meet Felicity. Here's what she's up to. And she actually replied. And I remember I was in the building she was in at the ground floors on George Street in Brisbane. And I thought maybe I'll just give her a bit more of a Google before I go up and meet her. And it turned out she was on the Reserve Bank Board of Australia. She'd been there for a number of years, and I knew that she was the leader of this organization. And it was actually one of the most profound meetings. I went up, I shared this idea, and I've probably talked about this on the podcast before, that she said, wow, this one event could be a national organization. And she believed in me. And I remember thinking in that meeting, really, can I do this? Can I grow this idea? And then I thought, well, who am I to question someone who has so much experience? She wouldn't just say that to anybody. She knows a lot more than me. Why not? Why not really try something out and really go for it? And she's been an incredible mentor. I'm still in touch with her today. And one of the interesting things I found about that relationship is that I see her basically once a year for about an hour. And I think often when people think about mentoring relationships, they think about it like my first experience, where it was a structured mentoring program. You know, you've got to see them every month. There's got to be something to talk about. But I've actually found throughout my time that my mentor relationships have been, like you said, a bit more organic. Like, okay, I've got a new goal. There's a new gap. I could go to my existing network and say, you know, how would you tackle this scenario? Or I'm facing a challenge, and then I've kind of got this pool of people that I can draw and ask, like, hey, I'm trying to do this. What would you think? How would you approach it? Kind of like a sounding board to talk through ideas. So I found it to be much more organic, and I feel like usually the structured mentoring programs haven't really worked as well for me compared to building those relationships with people over time.
Yeah, so it's so interesting, Felicity, that you say that, because anytime that I've had younger people that I have mentored myself personally, I have found that their first bit of feedback is, I'm quite nervous or intimidated going into this formal mentoring program. And it's because they don't know what to speak about. They are unsure what they're supposed to get out of these conversations. And I can certainly appreciate that if you are unfamiliar or haven't really started any formal mentoring before, or if you're not in a corporate job as well. I think, this concept of when you first enter early and junior positions in corporate, you're generally given a buddy or you're given a mentor, like you're entered into these things involuntarily, but they're super beneficial at the time. So I think early on in your career, you get used to having somebody to go to for the everyday things or the more meaningful and deep things that you need to think through. So if your corporate or your business has not set you up with that, then I can imagine it's a very overwhelming experience, because who is this person? How much do I share with them? I don't feel that aligned. I don't feel like connected to them. I don't know if I can go to them with the things that are really on my mind. And so the things I always try to share with people entering into a mentoring program is to think about, what has this person achieved or experienced in their life, and what can you pick out of that experience that will unlock value for you? So what's common between the two of you? Do they have experience that you aspire to achieve one day in your life? And who are they as a person? I always start with, you need to understand their journey and who they are as a person, because not only does that then give you the awareness of where to lead the conversation next, but it also gives you a genuine appreciation, a starting point to build empathy and trust and a relationship with this person. So whilst this is, okay, once you've got the mentor, these are the things you want to think about, coming back to how do you find that mentor, I might actually just lend a few words around what my experience has been and maybe the more meaningful mentorship opportunities I've had. I have to admit, I am fortunate enough to have been able to find and participate in many different programs, but the ones that have really stood out to me have also been a mix of formal mentoring, putting my hand up and applying for programs, as well as just finding incredible managers in my network or within my workplace that I want to build a relationship with and learn from. So as I mentioned, when I first came in early in my career, Robbie and Andrew, shout out to you both at Qantas, back when I first started as an engineering intern, they were phenomenal. And with Andrew, I went to him with everything from my personal life to my professional life, but that was a very organic meeting, and it was a very easy thing to do because we both had very open personalities. We shared probably too much between the two of us at the time. And then moving on from there, I found through the Career Trackers Indigenous internship program. I found many mentors through that program, but we had such structured training, leadership, and opportunity to improve that entire program, whilst it was directed around, having formal private internship experience, it was very much this holistic program that facilitated and supported me in many other ways. So that program was in a way a mentoring program as well. And then I applied to a women mentoring program where I was fortunate enough to be connected with Nicole Sabora from Macquarie Bank. And we entered into a monthly formal mentoring program that I had to apply for. And that lasted probably the better part of 2 years. And even now, her and I still remain in touch here and there. Now, that experience was probably very different to the organic kind of mentoring that I've had in the past, where I entered into this formal mentoring and I met with a woman that has smashed so many glass ceilings. And so I got placed with Nicole Sabora from Macquarie Bank as part of my internship mentoring experience with her. And throughout that experience, I got to learn about how many glass ceilings she'd smashed and how she kind of juggled being a parent and having an incredible corporate career. But again, coming back to the experience for me, then it was having that organic mentoring from my managers previously. And again, I think that you get out what you put in. And so turning up to those meetings with Nicole was really important for me because I had to, come prepared. I had a list of questions, but at the same time, I allowed the conversation to grow organically. But because, Nicole was such a busy person, she had so much on for her to give and receive the most value out of these sessions with me. She wanted me to come prepared. So, she would be quite direct in those meetings. What do you need? Where are you at? What's going on for you? And we jumped straight into it. So I think that, those sorts of relationships are super important because you're there to really, both build and receive as much support and knowledge as possible. But again, very, very different to those organic conversations that we've had with those managers in the past. So mentors can look very different. And I guess that's the point that I'm trying to get to here. Sometimes it's not just entering into some sort of formal program. It is just finding people that support you, and then from there finding people that can direct you and provide guidance, and then from there people that can provide learnings and they can apply to both your professional and your personal life. So they certainly look different. I think as well I might just touch on, at a certain point in your career, you want to make a change. You've spent, X, Y, Z years in a certain role, and the mentors at the time there were fantastic for a reason, for a purpose, or, they may have something, that they can offer you on an ongoing basis. But generally, I have had to direct my mentor options in the direction of where I want to take my career at the same time. So again, it depends where you're at in your life. Let's say, for instance, in your personal life, you want to become a parent soon. So you have become parents and they also want to keep their career going at the same time, versus, hey, I want a job change in a completely different industry and I don't know anyone in that industry. So now I'm going to reach out and find new avenues to actually find those mentors. And in the past, I absolutely have used tools like LinkedIn to try and connect with people in those industries. Again, applying for, then also utilizing the network of people around me today to ask them if they have someone in their network that they could introduce me to. And I know, Felicity, you have been phenomenal in that regard in my career. Anytime I am looking for advice or support, you've always been wonderful in offering an olive branch on who you know and how they can support me. So that's a great example of Felicity not only being an incredible co-host, but also being a mentor of mine. So again, mentors take all forms and shapes, and it is what you make out of that relationship that really determines how long they stay in your life, what you find benefit and what you connect on, and what you have in common, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I've had all, shapes and sizes of mentors, and I feel like I'm a, big believer of not having it's almost like I feel like the dating thing of like, are we official, like boyfriend, girlfriend now, or, girlfriend, girlfriend. And yeah, like I often don't have that official mentor conversation. I just more think of it as people who I can call up and ask for advice. So usually it's like, I feel like they're like my coffee buddies, people that I'll go have coffee with. And it could be people that are younger than you. It could be people the same age. It could be people who are older. And when it comes down to the nitty gritty of how do I find someone, and if I look back on the ways I've found people, it's been recently going to a speaking event. I thought that lady's phenomenal. I want to get to know her. And she had led Pfizer globally, had incredible role, and was based in Brisbane. So like, great, someone based in Brisbane, that's awesome. And went up to her after she gave a speech and just said, hey, I really love what you're talking about. Would it be okay if we grabbed a coffee? And she said yes, and we've caught up for coffee a number of times. I even borrowed my friend's mentor. She said, I've had this amazing guy, Brett, and he's the co-host of the other podcast that we run, Emerging Excellence, and he's the CEO of QLeave. And she said, I met him officially in a mentoring program. I think the two of you will get along. Go for coffee. And he's like, I'm like my CEO on speed dial. If I've got a challenge in the business, like we've had all kinds of tricky situations like conflicts of interest or whatever it is, he is the one that I call, hey, Brett, what do you think about this? And he's been such a fantastic support and mentor as well. There's been some unexpected ones where they've found me, which I think might be a tricky one for people to do, but I think it really shows the value of putting yourself out there. So a long time ago, it was kind of before LinkedIn was really a thing, got a message on LinkedIn from this guy. He was an older white guy. His name was Peter. I'm like, why is he messaging me on LinkedIn? Like, I'm talking going back like 10 years ago. And I thought, all right, I'll open the message. I went, oh my gosh, he's the CEO of Arup. This is amazing. And he was asking about the work we were doing to encourage students into engineering. And he said he'd love to catch up. And I actually spoke to him this week. We're still in touch. He's been an incredible support and mentor. So I think by putting yourself out there, you're attracting that attention or those eyeballs from other people noticing what you're doing. And so I've had quite a few mentors come along that way because they're noticing some of the work I'm doing. And you don't have to be, starting a not-for-profit or doing that. It's being active in your community, being active in your industry. Naturally, you're going to go to networking events, you're going to meet people there and, ask them different questions and see if they click. Just start with, hey, can we go for coffee? And there's no pressure to go, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Do you want to be my mentor? Oh, we went for coffee. Oh, it didn't work out. Oh, no, now I'm like stuck with this person and this mentor and all these expectations. So I agree, Renee. I think it can take many forms, shapes, and sizes. But I think my biggest tip would be people love to be asked and people love to share their journey. And if they're a good leader, I think the real mark of a good leader is someone who wants to create other leaders. And so I think they'll be more than willing to help you out. So I'd encourage people to ask. And like you said, Renee, search on LinkedIn. What are industries you want to be in? Where do you want to go in your future? What people, do you admire? And like genuinely just reach out to them. I say to people when I speak, if you want to reach out and send me a message, happy to have a chat with you and, have a conversation. And the amount of people that actually message and say, I want to catch up, I'd say less than 1%. So I don't mind saying that when I go speak because people just, I find, don't reach out. So if you can be that kind of person that reaches out with a really thoughtful message, and my top tip here around reaching out with a message is something like, hi, I'm Felicity. This is what, some goals that I've got. So say might be diversity in engineering, or I'm interested in doing this, or I've got a passion for ABC. That mentor, if they've got that aligned passion, they're going to want to help you. I'd love to meet with you for 30 minutes. Here are some times that I'm free. Make it so easy for that mentor to say yes to that initial meeting. Now, they might not be available the 3 times that you have, but it makes it a really simple way for them to say like yes or no to that question. And if I look back at the mentors like Brett, Catherine, who I mentioned in the beginning, and Peter, just as some examples, and Michelle as well, all of them have a common shared interest of wanting to get or increase diversity in engineering and in STEM. So when I talk to them about, hey, I've got this thing that I want to work on, they're more likely to say yes because they have a similar goal. And a surprising thing in that whole piece was actually that I can help them achieve their goals. Because when I was meeting all of them and reaching out to them, they're busy CEOs and they're busy executives. They might not have the time to be doing all the groundwork and the grassroots change making that I was doing. So actually, by creating these mentoring relationships, you can help your mentors achieve their goals. And that was such an aha moment for me. And when you can create a win-win in that mentor relationship, then I think it can be really powerful.
I agree. And to that point, I absolutely endorse the concept that mentorship goes both ways. Let's say someone's at the end of their career and someone's just beginning. The opportunity to impart a lot of knowledge on the young person is obviously quite phenomenal. But equally, there's so many things that, we miss out on or we aren't aware of as a result of, the more experienced senior person being busy and being so pigeonholed in what they're achieving and experiencing in life. So what you can bring as a young person is your life experience, your perspective on things, even simple things like language and like what is happening in terms of the culture of your generation and what are the things you care about. Like all of those things can really be quite, interesting in terms of the conversation, and it very much goes both ways for both the mentee and the mentor. My final piece of advice would probably be, take that leap of faith, and you are worthy of the support that's going to come your way. And don't let a title scare you into not taking the action to ask somebody for coffee. What I've found over my career is I was fortunate enough early on enough to have exceptional management who were in very, very senior roles from my first job ever. And what that did is it helped me realize that, there are just people behind these titles and there's nothing to be scared about. It's very much a case of, are you kind? Are you respectful? And do you want to help in points between whether somebody will spend time with you or not? Generally. So, obviously, very senior people need to have the space and time to be able to support you. But if they have that time available, it'll be more a case of, are they going to try and support the next generation or are they not? And what I'm trying to get to is, don't take it personally if someone doesn't have the time for you or doesn't make that effort. You need to have alignment in the people that you are reaching out to, and they need to have the space and time to be able to prioritize you. So keep asking. It's the kind of the Bumble analogy. Keep looking until you find the one. They will come about eventually. And don't let a bad experience knock your confidence. It's a really beautiful opportunity, and I certainly feel this way, and I'm sure Felicity feels this way. It's a beautiful thing to give back, and it's such a fulfilling and rewarding experience to connect with young people, to connect with anyone really, and be able to share experiences, learn from each other, and make each other better and grow from these conversations. So, I would say put your hand up, take that action, reach out to that person, and don't be scared. There's a lot in it for both of you at the end of the day.
Totally agree. And I think you lose nothing by asking the question, by putting yourself out there. And it doesn't mean anything about you. It just means they didn't reply. And you know what? You didn't lose anything at the end of the day. So totally agree, Renee. Absolutely encourage people to put themselves out there and ask people who could be your unofficial mentor. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. You've been on the Promoted Podcast. If you would like to learn more things like this, to build your team of mentors, to build your team and your environment around you, we have got an amazing free one-day leadership training coming up in the new year. It's going to be launched soon, and it'll be all over the We Aspire website. So head to weaspire.education to check that out, and would love to meet you in person and see you there. Thanks for another great episode, Renee. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Felicity. Have a great night.